Hey, this is Meredith's husband. I've got some SEO advice for you, but I'm going to keep it really simple so that you can understand it, so it makes sense, and most importantly, so you can actually use it. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Do you remember what you asked, or you said at the end of, not our last episode, but the episode before that? Because our last episode was Christmas, and we did a replay.
I said...
If you remember, I'm going to be amazed.
Okay, hold on. I said something
That's correct.
About blogging.
Kind of, sort of.
And if it would be better, I don't know.
You said, you just want somebody to do it all for you.
Yes.
Just didn't want to do it. You didn't want to do it. You just want somebody to take care of everything, which to me sounded like a problem with motivation, procrastination.
Mm-hmm. ADHD.
All of the above. So this seemed like an appropriate episode. Not New Year's resolutions, but motivation seemed like a good way to go into the new year.
Inspiration
and motivation. Like how you keep motivation is pretty important. As you know, yeah. I've been...
Perseveration.
I don't think that's a word. Perseverance.
Sure it is. No. Conservation.
Yeah.
Translation. Sorry. You were saying?
So the last year I've been working on something new, and finding motivation has been tricky. Or no, I should say not finding motivation. Finding motivation is pretty easy, but it's sustaining that motivation and staying motivated when you have doubts, or you just want to do something else, or you just want somebody to do it for you.
Yes.
You just can't get it going. So you know that guy I've been listening to, his podcast, Andrew Huberman? He talks about some of these things and how it relates to like dopamine. Yes. So he's in case you are not familiar, he is a professor of neurology and ophthalmology at Stanford.
Ophthalmology is the teeth.
Eyes.
Just
yeah.
Checking.
And, initially when he said that, I'm like, that's a weird combination, like neurology and ophthalmology. And one of the first things that he said that caught my attention was that...
That caught your eye?
was that your eyes, when you are developing, when you're a little baby inside your mommy's tummy, your eyeballs are actually part of your brain. They are parts of your brain that grow out and away from your brain and become your eyes. So your eyes start as part of your brain, which blew me away. Has nothing to do with today's episode, but I thought that was interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Isn't that? Yeah.
Yeah, that is really cool.
So, anyway.
It does make sense because, one more divergent is that, remember we went to a light show?
We went to the Lightscape light show in
the Botanical Brooklyn Gardens.
Yes.
And there are lots of exhibitions with light and color and music. And I felt that what you see in your eyes makes you happy.
Yeah, I agree.
To the brain. Aren't you glad I brought that
up? Yep.
Took up your time? You're welcome.
So anyway, back to Andrew Huberman. The reason, or one of the reasons I like this guy, and he has a podcast, he does a bunch of stuff, but I listen and or watch his podcast, is that he gives a lot of advice based on science. It's all based by scientific studies and data, and it's like, if you believe in science, it's kind of irrefutable stuff. If you believe in science.
I'm not going to say how can
There's a lot of people who don't believe in science. So anyway, his advice is all based on scientific studies. I can kind of swallow that, or I at least entertain those ideas a lot better than I can just, some guy with a podcast talking about motivation.
SEO. Sorry. What?
And so like a couple of examples that caught my attention right away. You know how people say, when you're struggling with motivation, you want to visualize success
the
and
end
really
goal.
Yeah, think about really visualize and picture the world and what you are trying to achieve, and it's going to happen.
What isn't that called? That's called when people have a hooji-jooji word, like you put it out in the universe, but there's another word, you manifest.
Yeah, so that type of advice, I don't really buy it. Like it might work for some people.
Yeah, because you're just putting it out there or doing something.
To be honest, I don't know about that exact line of reasoning, but he does say yes, visualization does work. It does makes you more motivated. It makes you work harder. It helps you progress towards your goals, whatever your goals are, when you are already motivated. If you are what he calls amotivated, not motivated, you're in the state of procrastination. He says, and the data shows, it does not work at all.
Interesting.
It does not work at all.
Interesting. So if you lie on your couch and you're eating... sorry.
He does say what does work is when if you are amotivated, you're in the state of procrastination, you can visualize failure to get out of your state of procrastination and get motivated. Now, for me, that has worked amazingly well. I don't have to visualize failure for very long at all before I get up and start working.
That's an interesting point. There's got to be survival. That has to go back to like when we were in trees, living in trees.
I think all of it does somehow. I don't know how exactly, but anyway, if you are stuck, and I think you were stuck, I don't know what you were feeling amotivated about exactly.
Amotivated.
Yeah, not motivated. He uses
Unmotivated.
That term a lot. I don't know. He says amotivated, so I'm saying
A is like, but asexual.
That's not sexual.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're amotivated. You're not motivated.
Okay.
Or you can say unmotivated. I don't care what you say.
You can do that.
So anyway, I've been using that, and it's worked, like I said, amazingly well. He gave some other tips. But what I was going to ask you is, were you feeling particularly unmotivated, amotivated about blogging, or was it about everything? Probably just everything by the look on your face.
Probably just everything, because there's so many things that I need to do.
Yeah.
That I then become overwhelmed and just...
So he had a particular episode, and I believe it was called Leveraging Dopamine for something. I'll link it below.
Adorable people.
Yeah. And he gave what he calls a toolkit for overcoming the
Can I buy it?
No, you don't need to buy it. It's all free. I'm going to give you some of the tips from it.
Okay.
But also, if you are just feeling, because I need to plug myself a little bit, if you are feeling just amotivated about blogging, if like blogging is the thing that you're trying to do and you can't get yourself to do it, we did a series on that. We did, I think, 4 or 5 episodes about getting your blog unstuck. I think that's a pretty good way, because I know how intimidating blogging can be, especially if you're starting, you're trying to create new blogs. That's rough. So those series kind of tackle some steps of like how to get started, how to start by looking at some of your old blogs and kind of go step by step with work that's a little bit easier than creating a new blog, and yet you are still working towards making your blog better first. Yeah. So if you are feeling in particular, you're procrastinating blogging specifically, go check out those episodes. Yeah. If you are just having trouble with motivation in general and you find yourself procrastinating, like I said, he gives you a toolkit. But first he explains when you're feeling amotivated, unmotivated, and you're procrastinating, what's really happening is you're in a dopamine trough. So what happens when you, and he talks about dopamine a lot and dopamine peaks and troughs. What happens when you do something you enjoy, like say, I don't know, exercise. You're going to feel have a cup of coffee. You do something, you're going to get a spike in dopamine.
You see a dog.
Yeah.
You get to interact with a dog.
And then after some amount of time, that spike in dopamine goes away, and you end up in a little bit of trough. You don't go right back to your baseline level of dopamine. You go a little bit below, and then you come back up. It's science.
Really? I think when I see a dog and it's very, very happy, I feel fulfilled and excited and motivated to do more.
Mm-hmm. And then what happens after a little while? After you haven't seen a dog for a walk?
I see another dog.
What if you don't? You want to see it. You want to see another dog.
More dogs.
Because you remember that spike in dopamine that you got from seeing the dog. And he says there is some similarities. And he says that a lot of this research comes out of addiction research, because people chase the high. They they drink alcohol, or they take drugs, or they do whatever. Yes. And they get that spike in dopamine, and then it tails off, and they want to get that spike again. And that can lead to chasing that spike in dopamine can lead to addiction, or more dogs.
Chasing the dog. Come and let me love you.
So when you are unmotivated. You don't want to work. You are in what he would call that trough. You're feeling a little bit just that you can't.
And what's not great is this trough. There's no pigs around. See, if you were lying in a trough and you got to see all these pigs' faces, you'd be really happy. So that we just got to make a demarcation of what
we
kind
should
of
write to
trough
him.
is.
We should write to him.
He
should make that clarification.
Yeah.
Anyway,
because when you think of trough, you think of piggies.
Some people do.
Everybody does.
Okay.
Everybody does.
He says what you want to do is you want to get out of that trough as quickly as possible.
Yes.
He says there's a couple of ways to get out. You can just wait, and your dopamine levels will return to their baseline. You'll just get back to feeling normal, and you will have regular motivation again. You can just essentially wait it out. That's also one approach for addicts who are going sober, going through, what do you call it? Not recovery, but detox. You could just wait it out.
Right.
It's an extreme example of an unpleasurable
just
wait.
Sitting there waiting to see a pig's face come in.
But then he says there are some ways that you can get out of that trough quickly. You can rebound quickly because you want to get out of that trough and you want to get back. Once you are out of that, your dread or your whatever is leading you to be unmotivated and procrastinate will be lessened. Okay. You should feel motivated again. So he says that one thing that does this, and I haven't tried this method because that method of visualizing failure has worked so well for me.
Stick with what works.
Yes. What works for you? Failure. He says you can do so whatever it is that you are dreading doing, let's say it's blogging or working on your website. Okay. What a lot of people do is they find themselves, instead of working on their website, they find themselves cleaning the house or trimming their dog's hair or doing something that is less painful than the thing that they think they should be doing, right?
Yes.
So he said
it's still an accomplishment, you feel like somehow in your brain.
Right. Yeah, and he does mention that, and he says that's one way that people do. It's very common. People do that, and they feel productive. It's one way they feel productive, even though they know they're not doing the thing that they really should be doing or want to be doing or need to be doing. But he says you can sort of jumpstart the process by doing something just for a short amount of time that is more painful than the thing that you are procrastinating.
Yes.
So he gave some examples. Now, you could do that. It doesn't have to be a productive thing in itself, and it doesn't have to be related to the thing that you are procrastinating. He gives a couple examples. One, a cold shower. A cold shower is not very pleasant, let's say.
No.
You can take a 2-minute cold shower. Doing that, you should find that you are going to jump out of that dopamine trough. You're gonna start to feel energized again. Or you're gonna want to do anything other than get in the shower. Right. Now, see, for me, the reason I haven't actually done this is something like that. When I think about, okay, I'll take a cold shower instead of doing this work, I just immediately do the work. Right. Like, I don't want to take a cold shower. F that and do the work. Right. But that was an example. Now, he did stress, obviously, don't do something that is more painful in the sense that it's actually causing physical pain or doing damage to yourself or your psyche or anything like that. Yeah. But more painful in that it just is a little more uncomfortable for your mind and or body. Another example he gave was meditation. Like, a lot of people are not very good at meditation. Why? Because it's hard. It's very uncomfortable. He said, just do a 2 or 5 minute meditation. Doesn't have to be on anything. Doesn't have to be specifically aimed at thinking about why you're not doing your work or getting to do your work. It's just the effort. Like, people don't like doing it. It's very, I don't want to say stressful, but it's not easy. Yeah. Meditation is not an easy thing to do. No. You know the trick of, and you do this, if you don't feel like exercising, the trick is to do what? You put on exercise clothes. Yeah, right. And so you roll out your mat. Now, why do you do that? Because that tells your brain we're doing it. Right. Doing something like that, or maybe just exercising for 1 minute or exercising for 5 minutes, is less painful than the workout that you have been procrastinating. Yes. So instead of doing the workout, you do something that is, not as hard. This is similar to the cleaning the house. It's less painful. Mm-hmm. So he gave that example well, but he says the important thing is to have a list of like a handful of things that you can go to. If you're feeling if you're feeling unmotivated and you're procrastinating doing something, you have a little list of 5 things. You got to do one of those things. If you're not going to do your XYZ that you know you should be doing, you got to pick one of the 5 things and do that instead.
That's a great thing.
The science is there. He says it works. That's why I like his show. It's because everything is backed by science and numbers and studies.
Yeah, I like that. I like that too. Okay, that's very good. Now, what if you're procrastinating writing that note of 5 things?
You got to do something that is more painful than that. Anyway, I thought that would help. I thought that was appropriate for a new year.
Yeah, I like that because I don't like the New Year's resolutions.
I don't either.
Because you're just setting yourself up for failure. It's when I used to go to the gym all the time, from January 1st. It was packed and everyone's going, I'm going to work out every day.
Right.
And then they hurt themselves like day 4, never come back. Or by the second week in February, everyone's gone.
Yeah, there's a swell in crowds at the gym in January.
I'm going to trim my bangs.
Didn't you just do that?
Yeah, but do you see how this side is like...
I'm going to come home and you're going to have 1/2-inch bangs.
I am. I'm going to look like I live in Berlin. Hey, thank you so much for listening. We really hope that you find this helpful and useful. And if you do, what you could do for us as a thanks would be to, drumroll please, yes, leave a review. Yes, everybody says it, I know, but it really does make a difference. Take 3 seconds, leave as many stars, say something really nice about what you like about the podcast and maybe why other people would like it. It would mean the world to us, especially my husband. That better? All right, I'm going to try one where I'm not going to be charming.